Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the New York Yankees. We are about to get the 2025 season underway. It was a relatively eventful off-season when all was said and done for the Yankees. Not very active in the free agent market at all over the first couple of months of the off-season. Although we did make some trades, pick some guys in the Rule 5 draft, and make a couple of minor free agent acquisitions. But as we approach spring training, made the most significant acquisition of our off-season, bringing on Walker Buehler to join our pitching staff. He's been injured for 2 consecutive seasons, but right now he slots in as our number 3 starter between reigning AL Cy Young Award winner Garrett Cole and Luis Severino. Lefty Carlos Rodon is heading up the rotation for manager Aaron Boone, and I think that Buehler will be a really nice addition to the team. We also made those 2 trades that I had mentioned for a couple of lefty relievers, Taylor Rogers and Dylan Lee, and Yendrys Gomez, the youngster who was up at the end of last year, also joins our pitching staff, hopefully in a more permanent and long-term way. Big free agent signing for position players ended up just bringing back Anthony Rizzo at a very bargain-oriented $3.1 million. We were going to move Austin Wells into the first base slot to replace Rizzo, but during spring training about a month ago, Giancarlo Stanton suffered another serious injury. He's now wrecked physically. So we decided to move Wells back to the outfield and re-sign Rizzo since he was on the market. We also reunited with Higgy as our backup catcher behind Jose Trevino. And we have the Rule 5 acquisition, the youngster Edinson Paulino from the Red Sox organization on the team as well. Otherwise, everyone's a familiar name from last year. Jason Dominguez is going to get a chance to be an everyday player for us this season after coming up at the end of last season. As I did mention, though, Giancarlo Stanton out with a fractured knee that he suffered towards the beginning of spring training. Another 5 months of recovery time, so maybe we get him back when we get to the playoffs, or more accurately, if we get to the playoffs. Obviously, not optimal to lose one of the big bats in our lineup and one of the most expensive players, but at this point, it is what it is. Before we jump into the episode, though, and start simming away, did want to say thank you, a couple of thank yous. First, thank you to everybody for watching. Really appreciate the viewers. Whether it's your first time joining us or whether you've watched hundreds of our videos over the last couple of years, do appreciate everyone who watches, and thank you for doing that. And also want to give a very special thank you to Sean Loon. You may have noticed that we have a fancy thumbnail now instead of the random pictures of the spreadsheet games that I typically use that would show up on the YouTube homepage. So Sean reached out, said he had created a thumbnail, sent it along to us graciously, and really appreciate it. It looks awesome. It's going to force me to, going forward, create some type of thumbnail to hopefully help keep continuing to grow the channel. I'm sure mine will not be for whatever our next series ends up being as fancy and artistic and creative as the one that Sean created, but I will do something. And thank you again, Sean, for sending that along. Really appreciate it. And with setting the table and some thank yous out of the way, time to take a look at the predictions for the Yankees, and we're expected to win 99 games this year. You can see from the sim that we played through, Aaron Judge and the rookie Jason Dominguez expected to have big years. And basically the whole pitching staff, the top 4 guys, Rodon, Cole, Severino, and Buehler, all expected to be among the top 10 pitchers in the American League. So If we really get 33, 33, 32, and 33 games started from those four pitchers, I think we'll have a very good chance of getting to 99 wins and once again winning the AL East and having the best record in baseball. First 2 years of the sim, we have won the AL East both seasons, but we've fallen in the American League Championship Series both seasons. Hopefully we can do better this year. And the Yankees off to a nice 4-1 start in the early stages of the season. Unfortunately, Oswald Peraza out for 3 weeks with a concussion. Certainly not the preferred circumstance to lose starting shortstop 5 games into the season, but looks like there's a pretty good chance we'll have him back early May. So clearly going to be cautious with the concussion and put Peraza onto the injured list. And if your name is Oswald or Oswaldo, hasn't been a good week here for the Yankees. Oswaldo Cabrera set to miss 4 months with a torn meniscus. So definitely having some injury issues this year. Some of you have commented that the injuries seem to have been kind of crazy, and I would agree, particularly in the case of Giancarlo Stanton. For those who are wondering what our settings are, there's nothing really creative. We're in challenge mode, and we're just going with the default settings. So our injury frequencies are normal OOTP Classic for both short and long injury. There's a part of me that obviously I can't change it in challenge mode, but based on the number of injuries I've had, part of me thinking maybe to crank it down a tiny bit to low, but it's obviously an extremely small sample size, barely 2 seasons into this playthrough, so not going to do anything rash, but I would agree that it does seem like we've had a lot of bad luck as far as injuries with this team. And after being a pretty dominant regular season over the first 2 seasons of this playthrough, Yankees off to a pretty mediocre start, 11-13 record here as we get to May 1st. Obviously, there's been a lot of injuries, but that's not the only reason for the Yankees' lack of success on the field. 11th in the league in runs scored, so down significantly from last year when we were the number 1 offense in the AL. And we're 6th in runs allowed, so worse than last year when we were number 1 in runs allowed. We should be better than we are by a game. We should be 500. We do have Peraza coming back off of the injured list today, so that will definitely help with the injuries to Peraza and Cabrera. We had signed Elvis Andrus right when the season was beginning to a minor league contract. You can see he's 1 for 10, might send him down. And then Caleb Durbin, a guy who's been in our farm system for several years now, also brought him up. But be nice to have Peraza back in the lineup, and hopefully we can get the record up over 500 here in the month of May. Pitching staff's been fine as far as the starters. Rodon 3-2 with a 2.84 ERA. Garrett Cole only 1-2, but still has pretty decent numbers. 3.25 ERA, striking out almost a batter per inning year after his Cy Young Award. Buehler's 2-2 with a 4.71 ERA, which is the highest among our pitching staff. You can see Sevy 3-1 and Dre Jameson 1-2. As far as the relievers, Nestor Cortez moved out of the rotation to make room for Buehler and Jameson. Has not been thriving in that long relief role, but obviously a small sample size. And another lefty, Taylor Rogers, who we brought on board in a trade, also has not excelled in that left-handed specialist role that Boone has wanted him to be in. And the Yankees have been playing a little better here through the first half of May. Record is 20-18 on May 15th. 1 game out, 3rd place in the AL East. So obviously the standings are very bunched. Orioles up by a half game on the Rays and a full game on us, and the Blue Jays are only 2.5 behind. Really, only the Red Sox who are struggling this year. You can see Judge third in the American League in home runs. Rodon is third in ERA, third in wins, leading the league in strikeouts and pitcher WAR. And Michael King with 11 saves is third in the American League. So it looks like some decent starts to the season for some of the Yankees' key players. A little bit of bad news. Walker Buehler, tired arm, going to have a substantial impact for 1 week. Unfortunately, and we've talked about this before, Aaron Boone does not allow me to make any player strategy setting decisions, despite the fact that I am his boss. Normally in a situation like this, I would just probably sit Walker Buehler for a week, skip him in his start, and then when he's healthy, just put him back in the rotation without putting him on the IL. I don't know that AI Boone is smart enough to do that, so I am actually going to just put Buehler on the injured list, which unfortunately means he'll miss 3 starts. But we do have the advantage of having Nestor Cortez on our team, so we'll slot him into the back of the starting rotation now, bring up a player from AAA. We should have some decent pitchers down there, and run with things at that point for the next few weeks. We do have Outman and Peraza are both back. Obviously going to be a while till we'll see Cabrera and Stanton, and now it's going to be a little over 2 weeks till we see Walker Buehler pitching again also. And we've gotten to the end of May, basically just 1 game left in the month today against San Diego and Nabil Crismatt, who we had thought about trading for a few years ago. Buehler healthy again. We had brought up Ron Marinaccio. He's only pitched in 1 game for us, so we'll send him back down to AAA. Taking a look at the pitching, Cortez has his ERA down to 3.47, so he's actually been pretty solid when he had the opportunity to be in the rotation, but once again it looks like he will be Cortez will be going back to the bullpen. Looks like Buehler once again slotted in as our number 3 starter, getting pretty good pitching overall. Taking a look at the team statistics as we get near the end of May, do have a better 16-12 record. Hopefully we'll extend it to 17-12 today. Runs scored still only 9th, but runs allowed we're up to second in starter ERA, third in bullpen ERA. So the pitching has definitely started to come together a little bit better, even though we still are a game and a half out of first place as we near the month of June. And after a slow start to the month of June, Yankees playing a little better now. 5 wins in a row, 7-3 over our last 10. But we're still 2.5 behind the Rays in the division, tied with the Blue Jays and only a game up on Baltimore. We are in a 3-way tie for the last 2 wild card spots with the Royals and the Blue Jays. So it's getting to the point with a 35-32 record that it's not really a small sample size anymore, and these Yankees just are perhaps not as good as we had hoped that they would be. Nice to see attendance ticking up a little bit as we've been winning a lot of games more recently. Pitching is still generally good, although Walker Buehler with a 5.15 ERA certainly not impressing a ton of people at this point. Hopefully we can get him straightened out. Take a look and check in on those injuries. Still got 2 months for Cabrera, 2 to 3 months for Giancarlo Stanton. He is willing to consider a trade at this point, given that he's wrecked physically and he's out another 2 to 3 months. I'd still love to get him off the books, even though we are at least at the point where his contract is going to start going down in value each of the next 2 seasons. But certainly just in terms of moving on from a player who has been a pretty significant disappointment. Wouldn't be the worst thing just mentally for me to get him off of the team, retaining 70% of his contract. And there's absolutely no interest at that level, though. So no interest retaining 80% either, which is pretty sad. We threw in Simao Cantinho, who was our key international free agent signing about a year and a half ago, number 50 prospect in baseball. If we threw him in with Stanton and dropped it down to retaining 65% of his contract, there's still nothing. So we're just kind of stuck with Stanton at this point. I'd love to get him off the books, but if we have to eat 2/3 of his contract and give up one of the top prospects in our system, and there's not a single team that's even interested in doing that, for the time being, even though he's would waive the no trade clause, I just don't think there's any deal for us to make. And we've made it to July 1st, and June was not a kind month to the Yankees. You can see we're 39-41, 5.5 games behind after 2 consecutive division titles that ended up being pretty easy in both circumstances. Hasn't been an easy season for the Yankees at this point. 5.5 back, 4th in the American League East. We're 4 games out for a wild card with a bunch of teams to jump over. Extremely disappointing year for a team that, when we ran that preseason prediction, certainly looked really good. Taking a look at the team statistics, the offense has just been bad. We're 11th in the American League in runs scored, 14th in batting average. Do steal a lot of bases, but we're wasting at this point, brilliant performance by our pitching staff. First in the league in ERA, starters ERA, bullpen ERA, runs allowed, WAR, hits allowed, opponent batting average, and we're top 5 or better in every pitching category. We're 4th and 6th in the big defensive categories. It's just the offense has been completely inept, and we've also been a bit unlucky. The Pythagorean expectations for our team are 43-37, so 4 games better than we are. Clearly being 4 games out of the wild card and 4 games below our Pythagorean expectations makes me think that things could be a little better for these Yankees going forward. We're also 8-19 in one-run games, so we've been incredibly unlucky in the closest games possible. 14-23 road record is putrid. So going to have to start turning things around, because it is now July. We're a game away from the halfway point of the season, and we are below 500. And there's really not a lot to complain about with the pitching staff. As I mentioned, we're leading the league in runs allowed once again this year, so the pitchers have been holding up their end of the bargain. Garrett Cole at 5-7, certainly a disappointing follow-up to his Cy Young Award season last year. 3.77 ERA is still certainly respectable, but he's the only one of our starting pitchers with a losing record at this point. The bullpen generally looks like it's been pretty sound also. Michael King, 21 saves, 3.03 ERA, 47 strikeouts and 32 2/3 innings. And the youngster Yendrys Gomez, 52 strikeouts and 31 innings, a 2.03 ERA. He is a guy who also has enough stamina that he could be a starter for us at some point, doing a great job out of the bullpen. But quite honestly, although Nestor Cortez has been pitching more respectably of late, if we did have any injuries to the starting rotation, probably wouldn't be the worst thing to give Gomez a chance also. But overall, the pitching staff doing really well. It's our offense that has been a huge disappointment thus far. So turning to those everyday players at just about the midway point of the season, Higgy is a backup catcher hitting just 200. Jose Trevino, 226 average, only one home run this year. Still plays really good defense, so his WAR is positive, but has not been as productive offensively as he has been in previous seasons when he was at least hitting a few balls over the wall. Anthony Rizzo, 217 and 14 homers and 283 at-bats. Kind of as expected, unfortunately. Edinson Paulino, the Rule 5 acquisition, hitting just 235 with one home run and limited playing time. Anthony Volpe, 247, 10 home runs, does have 17 stolen bases and is a little more than a win above replacement. Nick Maton and Trey Sweeney, starting third baseman and a utility infielder who's getting some extra playing time now with Cabrera still being hurt, both on the interstate. Maton particularly hitting just a $130, $192 from Trey Sweeney, both of them well below replacement level, which is not impressive. Peraza, despite the several weeks on the IL, hitting 284 with only 4 home runs, but does have 23 stolen bases and a team best 1.6 WAR. The rookie outfielder Jason Dominguez, 264 average, 11 homers and 276 at-bats, 1.4 WAR, is second best on the team. James Outman hitting 222. Austin Wells, coming off of his Rookie of the Year season, hitting 246, does have 18 homers. Cody Bellinger, 253 and 12 homers. And Aaron Judge really having a rough year after leading the league in home runs 3 straight seasons from 2022 to 2024 and winning MVP awards in 2022 and 2023. Hitting just 240 this year. Does have 19 home runs, but his WAR is just 1.2, so a big drop off from the Judge compared to the monster numbers he had put up over the previous 4 seasons. And as we think about potentially hitting the trade market to help ourselves in the coming weeks before we get to the end of July and the trade deadline, certainly would look at first base and third base as the 2 positions where we could use an obvious upgrade. I do tend to think that Judge will turn himself around, at least according to our scout, still has that really good power, that incredible home run power, and the excellent eye. So tend to think that he'll hit better. The goal with him is going to be to keep him healthy throughout the season. We have been playing him more often in the outfield this year than last year when he was a regular DH. He has played 61 games in right and even started 1 game in center. Zone rating and defensive efficiency not particularly impressive, though. Does have ratings that suggest should be at least an average defensive outfielder, but hasn't been the case so far this year. At least in right field, I would think he could be average. His range definitely below average for a guy that you'd want to play in center field at this point. But hopefully we'll get more offense from Judge. Bellinger, Wills, Outman, Dominguez kind of feel like we're okay in the outfield, and there obviously is that chance that we get Stanton back in the month of September, probably about the time that we'll be getting Cabrera back. But and Cabrera will certainly help our infield when he's back and help move Maton to a pure backup role and probably only have Trey Sweeney starting against right-handers rather than also having him start against left-handers. But if we could find some infield help now, it would not be the worst thing in the world. Taking a look at who's on the trading block right now. And there are some players. Christian Walker, not be the worst first baseman in the world to bring on board. Hitting 264 with 16 homers. better bat than Rizzo at this point. Be interested in figuring out exactly what they're looking for Walker. Making a lot of money, we'd have to have them retain a pretty good chunk of his contract, unfortunately, to get it on the books here, but that may be something for us to explore. And we've made it to our mid-season evaluation with Hal Steinbrenner with a 41-42 record, so 1 game under 500, 4 games back in the division. Disappointed in our record, disappointed that we're not making progress on our attendance goal. We're doing okay in terms of profit, finding top prospects, building our farm system. Haven't drafted any players who have made an impact at the major league level yet. Happy with our progress towards the goals, but his overall impression not quite as high for us at this point. Peraza looks like he's going to be banged up for a couple days, not a major injury there, fortunately. But obviously it's been a disappointing year for the Yankees. I mentioned those owner goals, win the championship, not making progress there, and then a high priority to get attendance to 46,000 a game. We actually cut our ticket prices a bit this year and sold a lot more season tickets to try to get ourselves to that goal. Unfortunately, attendance is down about 4,000 a game at this point, despite off-the-charts fan interest, because the performance of the Yankees on the field just has not been that great. So as I mentioned, we're 4 games out in the division, and we are also 4 games out of the wild card right now. So we've got a lot of work to do. We do have just about 4 weeks until the All-Star break, so certainly we'll continue to look for an opportunity to maybe add a first baseman or a third baseman. We've been having some discussions on the first baseman. Christian Walker from Milwaukee, who was available. So far haven't really made significant progress with the Brewers, but think that he could potentially be a interesting addition to our team. You can see we've got Giancarlo out on the trade block as well. Haven't heard of any interest from him. He still would be willing to consider a trade for a few teams. I don't think there's going to be anything significant in terms of demand for him, but we'll at least shop him and see. 75%. No interest whatsoever, even though he's getting closer to a potential return. So definitely a disappointing year for the Yankees so far. Fortunately, we still have almost a full half of a season to right the ship. Expect our offense to be better in the second half of the year. The question is just going to be, is it going to be good enough to get us into a playoff spot? And I tend to think when all is said and done, this team will be back in the postseason. Certainly, we're going to, as I said, continue looking for a opportunity to add some talent to the team, particularly someone who can handle the bat. And we'll see what kind of progress we make on that in our next episode, when we're also going to dig deep into the upcoming 2025 amateur draft. And another preview here. The draft pools just look pretty shallow to me thus far in OOTP 24. You can see here of the batters, we've got about less than 20 players who our scout thinks have 3-star or higher potential. And it's even worse when we look at the pitchers, and we're scouted very well at this point, but there's literally only 2 pitchers that our scout thinks have 3-star or better potential. So I think I've mentioned this now 3 straight years in this playthrough. Part of the reason why I'm waiting for the first big patch to come out before beginning our long-term playthrough is that I just don't think the I don't think everything on the game is functioning perfectly yet in terms of trade AI and just the weakness of these draft classes thus far. But I'm sure we'll be seeing some progress from the folks at OOTP Developments on those fronts as we do get the updated patches. And hopefully we'll see some progress from these Yankees on the field over the next few weeks. And we'll find out how we do on that front in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.